Lenny the Lawyer Live, and I'm coming to you today to talk about domestic violence because far too many of you feel that since it's in family court, it's not a big deal and you take it for granted. And I found too many people are looking for price. A conviction for domestic violence that results in a final restraining order can have life-altering consequences. You could potentially lose your job. You could also potentially lose the right to ever own a gun again. And recently, I had a gentleman come into my office. Now, I do something that a lot of attorneys don't, but I'm not going to educate you. I'm not going to educate attorneys, rather, that may be watching this video on my techniques. But when this gentleman came to me, who was a hunter and had a collection of guns, I asked him a number of questions. And then I prepared him for what's going to come on direct examination, which means when we put on our side of the case, and cross-examination, which means when the other side gets to ask him questions. And I also explained to him what can and cannot be done on when he's cross-examined and when his spouse testifies. I also explained what can and cannot be done, and I gave him an overview of evidence to a certain extent. When we got to court, he was prepared so that he was not rattled. When the attorney for the plaintiff tried to ask him questions that were not related to his direct testimony, I was able to successfully object and exclude that testimony. Now, when the victim testified, there were certain things that she tried to bring in, have them admitted as evidence, and I was able to object successfully and utterly preclude her attorney from having those introduced as evidence. One of the most serious mistakes this attorney made was he had tried to get an online background check admitted into court. The only criminal background check that can ever be admitted into court is a background check performed by the state police and certified as a state police background check. Although I'm sure if you went to the expense and resources of getting an FBI background check that was certified, that would also be admissible in court. Now, you might ask, why go to all these expenses and why worry? Because if you're convicted of domestic violence and you violate a domestic violence final restraining order, which is called an FRO for short, there's life-altering consequences. Your fingerprints are taken, you're put into a national database, and employers, when they do a background check, will be able to find out about that. And there are a lot of jobs that you would not get employment for if you're convicted of a domestic violence offense and a final restraining order is issued. Now, this particular client, I was able to successfully have the complaint dismissed. So he was able to keep his rifles and continue hunting. And I met the standard of preponderance of the evidence, and he was cleared. Now, there are 19 potential charges, elements of domestic violence, which is beyond the scope of this video. However, you can look at my channel, Lenny the Lawyer Live, and see the other videos about domestic violence. Now, you have to understand something. In choosing an attorney, it's not about price. This is your life here. You wouldn't shop if you're having chest pain, are you going to look for the cheapest doctor or are you going to look for the best? Well, you might argue that, this is not a matter of life and death. It can be. Whether you're a victim or a defendant, it can have life-altering consequences. Recently, I met with a lady who was charged with domestic violence, and she had cross charges against the other person. Now, both were at risk because of their citizenship status for deportation. So rather than take the risks of trial, because no matter what you think, and no matter what I think, I'm not the one deciding, it's the judge. We settled the matter with civil restraints where both people dropped the restraining orders. Now, when civil restraints are violated, just like the name implies, they're civil in nature, not criminal. So therefore, these people did not have to worry about being deported, because with the current administration, especially if you're convicted of domestic violence and you're not a U.S. citizen, you could be deported. ICE monitors a lot more things than you would believe. So you have to be very careful. When you look for an attorney, you have to consider the attorney's experience in domestic violence trials. That's all that matters. The attorney is someone who has, in my case, I've been licensed for 40 years. I've done countless domestic violence trials successfully. I will give you the best possible results I can given the facts and circumstances of your case and the existing law. And anybody that guarantees you anything other than aggressive professional representation is lying. Because, I'm not, it might come off as sounding like a wise ass, but it's not meant that way. The only guarantee in any type of litigation, which this is that there are no guarantees. Someone can guarantee you that they will provide you with aggressive professional representation. Anyone that guarantees you a specific result, run the other way. And remember, this video has been for legal information and educational purposes only. It is not legal advice. If you want legal advice, I can provide that for you either in an in-person consultation in my Clifton, New Jersey office or our firm's Maplewood, New Jersey office. And you can get in touch with me by calling 973-798-6131. This video has been for education and informational purposes only. For legal advice, you need to call the law firm of Boyer Coffey, LLC at 973-798-6131. Now, if you have any questions pertaining to domestic violence or any other legal topic, please feel free to leave your questions in the comment section. And if you've liked this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, and make sure you click the bell icon and that you get all notification of all videos. I know your time is irreplaceable, and I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from it. Thank you for watching, and make sure you look at the other videos on this channel so that you can continue getting some information and educational purposes, not just on domestic violence, but on a lot of other common situations people face in everyday life. And remember, when you have a legal problem, call Boyer Coffey 973-798-6131. Thank you.